Welcome to Customer Driven with Chad McDaniel. Well known throughout the customer leadership industry, Chad has been the chief community leader for Execs in the Know, one of the top executive customer advocacy groups on the planet. With a passion for customer success and a desire to share and develop best practices, Chad's conversations with industry leaders aim to give unfiltered, unplugged access to industry peers who are customer obsessed, just like you. If you enjoy the show, please be sure to rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Now here's your host, Chad McDaniel.
Welcome to Customer Driven with Chad McDaniel. And first of all, to all our listeners, again, I want to really welcome you to another episode where we continue in this podcast series to kind of challenge the norm in customers' thinking and customer success. And I really try to use this podcast series to bring on a wide range of different guests that can really help share insights, help us as a community learn and kind of challenge some of the status quo in thinking. And I've got a terrific guest today that I'm going to introduce here very shortly, Shawn from Amplify AI, and I'll give you all the lowdown quickly on Amplify AI, so don't worry. You know, if you're not familiar with Execs in the Know, we are a very large corporate peer community sharing direct insights and best practices amongst the peer community. We call it leaders learning from leaders. And I will tell you, as a customer executive yourself, you are not in this journey alone. There are so many brands and leaders, customer leaders out there that want to connect. They want to share insights. They want to learn from each other from in a very unfiltered way and really just tackle this whole equation around customer leadership. And I think as a group of customer leaders, again, like yourself, we have a tremendous opportunity and obligation to really advance this industry and really pay it forward, give back to the community. So Execs in the Know is your home for the movement of customer leadership mentorship and gathering and sharing. If you've not been to our website, I strongly would encourage you to go to execsintheknow.com and you can look at the resources tab or the events tab, and there's many, many ways that we're connecting leaders together. But on that note, I'd like to get started. And by the way, you are my guest. At the end of the episode, I would love you to rate or subscribe to the podcast series, Customer Driven. Your feedback is so important to me, and I do look at that, and you give me a lot of good insights to the kind of topics and discussions that you'd like to have on these episode series. So you're doing a great job with that, and please keep it up. So one of the things I want to tackle today, and I've titled this particular episode around streamlining agent experience to evaluate customer experience. It's been on my mind a lot lately, and you've probably seen a lot of stuff out there about kind of the connections between CX strategies and EX strategies, employee experience strategies. And albeit this is going to really focus down more at the agent level when it comes to agent expectations and agent outcome and performance and success with their training, their learning, and their knowledge, which is a huge topic of continued need and focus. And for you that have been around this industry for a long time, like myself, you know, we've really seen this change of what expectations are required at the agent level more so than they ever used to be. Even just a few years or, you know, not too recent past what those have been. And I think that as we continue to see how the consumer expectation continues to really change and press upon us as brands, outcomes and resolution, that's putting tremendous stressors, again, at the agent area. And I'm sure it's all in our mind, and probably a lot of you are actively addressing and looking at that. But for my guest today, and I was really thinking about who I could bring on the episode of Customer Driven from a thought leadership perspective that would help me kind of guide in the thinking and the conversation when it comes to this agent success. And Shawn Minter, first of all, from Amplify AI. Shawn is out of Dallas. You can find Shawn on LinkedIn. Just look for Shawn, S-E-A-N, Minter, M-I-N-T-E-R. And Shawn, we'll make sure we get your contact information at the end of this. But Shawn, I know you travel a lot. You've been very, very busy. I've known you for a number of years in our industry. You've been a great contributor to our industry over the years. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Nice to be here.
So I think what we should do, Shawn, is start out with what is Amplify AI, just in the most simplest terms, to our listeners, so we can all kind of walk away with that and say, okay, good, I got it. And I think it's the company you founded a couple of years ago. You're the founder and CEO. But when you were thinking of Amplify AI, what were you looking to address? What was the problem? And tell us a bit about the company as we kind of forward 2 years later.
Thanks, Chad. Yeah, so I did found Amplify AI about 4 years ago, and the primary area of focus for Amplify AI was to solve the problem of driving actions to improve agent performance based on all the data that we're generating in our contact center operations. So, like you said, as customer expectations are maturing, the easy stuff that customers want to do is getting automated, it's being pushed to self-service. The contact center is getting more complex. That means we need to transform how we handle agent development, agent performance, use of data to really drive that expectation and retooling of how we manage agents to drive that customer experience.
Well, that's a great place and very relevant and good timing. I'm sure it's been quite the journey and a lot of fun over the past 2 years, Shawn. Before we get into some of the specific topics here, but you kind of look at the macro level as a state of the industry when it comes to this agent equation of really their success. I call it the super agent because they've got so many different things in the way they've got to consider support and resolution. And that could be, at the desktop or through knowledge management systems or other ways that they're being asked to address things. Where do you kind of see that state of the state? I mean, I know we've got a long road to continue to go here, but being kind of visionary in that area for the last few years, where do you kind of see things right now? What would you kind of want to recommend or share with the audience?
Sure, thanks. So I think for the audience, I would say most of the clients we work with and most large organizations have spent a lot of time implementing applications and systems and things to drive customer experience, but they generate a lot of data. And they've not done a lot to be able to figure out how to invest in something that will take that data and actually use that data to drive performance improvement at the agent level and the frontline supervisor level. So my recommendation, and really what Amplify focuses on, is taking data you're already generating, understanding what your high performers are already doing, figuring out how to empower the rest of your workforce to replicate what the high performers are doing to allow everybody to become a high performer. Today we're too dependent on frontline supervisors, one-on-one coaching agents on every skill that needs to be transferred and improved. Why shouldn't agents be able to understand what high performers are doing, watch micro-learnings to empower themselves to improve performance, give frontline leaders actions that are very specific on what needs to be done, quick identification of the challenges that are happening in the agent population, hitting those quick behaviors right when they're happening, right when improvement is necessary, is needed in this world where customers are needing and expecting higher customer experience from the vendors they work with.
So obviously you're not advocating any more layers of adding new data or new systems or tools or whatever at that particular desktop. It really is harvesting that data that's already coming and being presented to them through whatever mean or form, and being able to use maybe some machine learning or some other intelligent keyword phrasing, data harvesting, data mining from that, Shawn. And then I'll get to the second part, which is going to be more about how do you replicate that successful agent. But can you, for the audience here, just to make sure there's no clarifications, how does it really work from that data set and the massive amount of data that's at the agent already?
So one thing Amplify is really good at is connecting to almost all the applications that are utilized in those contact center environments. ACD platforms, CRM platforms, quality tools, voice analytics, workforce management, customer satisfaction results. And we bring in data in many different ways, and our goal is to give every view, every agent, one single pane of really understanding what their performance is and what they really need to focus on in terms of driving improvement and how do they get there. Help them build their own roadmap to success. So we don't really want to add more data sources, to be honest with you, in most clients. There's already too much data. They're just not using the data in a way that needs to be used to drive the agent experience, to ultimately drive that agent performance.
So, I think a lot, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, Shawn, because I'm asking you as kind of a subject matter expert to help our audience through this. So I remember in the legacy days, and a lot of this probably still goes on in the contact center, there's a quality management group, and they're monitoring, listening to, the agent call, trying to coach that agent or get to the supervisor for effective coaching to help them in their performance management and kind of customer success and customer experience. And the challenge with that model's still very much there and effective, but the challenge is that if you're having an immediate systematic issue where maybe there's a resolution problem that is going on, and your company is not identifying that right away for whatever reason, or it's from a training perspective for that agent, this kind of keyword picking it up quickly, maybe keyword's not the right word, but this sort of scraping of information real time can allow you to immediately put a micro learning training session on the fly together to help correct immediately that agent performance, that agent challenge, versus waiting 30 days, 60 days down the road as it kind of works through the traditional feedback coaching QA system. Is that correct, or would you say it differently for our audience?
No, I think that's, from a concept perspective, that's 100% accurate. So how we would actually make it work in reality would be, as we gather data, we have basically identify gaps from performance in looking at personas of our highest performers. So as data comes into Amplify, we become super intelligent as to what your high performers are doing, what are their behaviors, what do they look like, and then helps drive personas at various time frames. Who are your highest performers in the last week? Who are your highest performers in the last month? Who is your highest performers in the last quarter? How does their data look? What are they actually doing? What are they saying? What kinds of data points do we have about them? Then, as we identify gaps or things start changing, and we see various variances and data points coming to us from different systems, we can easily identify large changes that are happening in your environment before you would be able to pick them up. We'd be able to easily identify this persona group of high performers is dropped in performance primarily because of these changes and these variations of data that we see. So there's something going on in a process, there's something going on with the product or issues going on in the marketplace that are causing this drop. And we can flag those things for quick coaching.
Would you say, programs are going to change, expectations change? Have you found, Shawn, that those high-performing agents stay relatively, usually always the same, or do they also change as different needs, expectations, programs change? So it's always evolving. For this quarter, these are our best agents for these reasons, and for this quarter, these are our best agents for these reasons, and we got to keep modeling that real time. Or what has been your experience in that regard?
I think your audience will probably say that there's probably more change. If we could expect our contact centers to have stability and things not change, I think things would be able to work a lot smoother. The problem is that's not the world we live in. There's constant change. There's constant change in various verticals. In the healthcare world, your fourth quarter is totally different than your first, second, and third quarters. There's different call types that come in, product cycles, declines, trouble issues that happen. It's very unpredictable in many ways. So how do we manage that unpredictability? How do we live in that environment? How do we make sure we identify gaps and fill them quickly? And more importantly, how do we make sure we have a good way of driving change management, speed to proficiency of new agents that are coming on? How do we make them better faster so we can drive their performance? So all of these different variables really need a true platform to really take the data in to understand performance, because humans and people just don't have the data capability to handle all this data and really understand and drive action from it.
No, that's a good point. And I guess where I was kind of driving to, or to clarify as we're sort of fleshing out this discussion, is that, hey, people would say, Chad, I already know who our top agents are. We monitor that. We know right away. I could tell you on these set of metrics, these are typically our top performing agents. And that still very much be the case, I guess, depending on how they're looking through whatever lens that could be. But I subscribe to that the agent performance, I guess you should say the top agents, they're going to be very fluid. They're going to change for a number of dynamic reasons. And it's not necessarily, it's always a prediction to say these top agents are always going to be the top agents for whatever reason. So you're advocating that there is ways that, we as group of customer leaders can quickly support and identify these trends and these ever-changing opportunities to on the cuff, on the fly, immediately sort of micro train and share the knowledge of the top performers in a very fluid way throughout a continuous servicing cycle. Is that correct?
Yes, that's 100% correct. That's why one of the reasons we kind of look at creating personas over multiple timeframes is because top performers really aren't that stable given the change we have in our environment. Certain groups of people are good in one area, but then as soon as the environment changes and you get call types that are varying, a different group of people become high performers. So I think really understanding the high performers, understanding changes, driving better change management to replicate the high performers is kind of where we stand out. But you're 100% right. The high performers are fluid, primarily because the contact center environment is fluid. Things are constantly changing, so the high performers are constantly changing.
Excellent. And by the way, for our listeners, you've been listening to Shawn Minter, the CEO of Amplify AI. Shawn is based in Dallas, Texas. Love Dallas, by the way. I'm in Phoenix, Shawn, but Dallas is always a favorite stopping point for all of our audience in that neck of the woods. So we're going to continue down the pipeline of this, is that what you're advocating is the drive more real-time skills, the ability to identify gaps real-time, is the goal in pushing the right content and basically replicating high performers. Our audience is very much about the facts. And Shawn, I'd like to say, okay, let's say I subscribe to this. I get this. It makes sense. But I want to know the details. I want to know the specifics. I want to know a case study. Can you give us, you don't have to name the client, but you could say the industry. Give us a couple of examples. I think our audience would really like to say, okay, there was this company that had this sort of problem going on. Here's what they did, and here's sort of the turnaround of actual metrics that you saw and you can share to the best you can. Can you help us with some specifics?
Sure. If you really look at customer experience, obviously that's best measured by some voice over the customer KPI. And we have clients a lot of clients that we help them drive customer experience through helping manage voice of the customer. So in the retail world, in the telecommunications technology world, even in the travel industry, we have clients that work on those. So I would say our primary performance metric that we focused on in that area has been voice of the customer, along with productivity. So how do we get the best voice of the customer with the most productive agents? And we've been able to, in many cases, I'll take retail as an example, a nationally known, one of the best retail brands in the world. And we've been able to help drive a 27% increase in what they measure as voice of the customer, primarily driven by the process we just talked about, is really an understanding what are their high performers doing, what are their skill sets, soft skills, solving customers' problems faster, quicker, fewer transfers, all those types of things that really drive customer experience. How do we transfer those skills from the people that are doing really good to the average and low performers so they can get better? Because ultimately, the performance is driven by the average of all of your agents. So how do we drive everybody else to be good? And that's our motto. We believe every agent can be a high performer. There's nothing that limits them from being a high performer.
So Shawn, I'm going to interrupt here. You said a 27% increase in voice of the customer. Was that through some sort of CSAT or NPS surveying, or can you clarify?
Yes, that was 100% a CSAT result. Measuring customer satisfaction, specifically agent satisfaction, in a CSAT survey.
So in that case, the agent was able to reduce customer effort, resolve in first contact, or whatever the customer felt that experience was improved from, based on that real-time marrying of agent skill set and capability to whatever that particular servicing requirement was, something like that.
Exactly, 100%. So, if you look at the more complex environment our call center lives in today, an agent has to have a lot of skills. You have to have soft skills. No matter what, when you're talking to somebody that's unhappy or wanting the problem solved, you have to be able to kind of build rapport with them. That's basically table stakes at this point. Can we teach agents to have the appropriate soft skills? But two, you have to be able to solve their problems. And in this complex world, they have all kinds of problems. How do we teach agents to be able to solve any kinds of problem that a customer can call them with? And that's where the complexity of training, learning, solving first call resolution has a direct correlation to voice of the customer. So if we can give them soft skills, we can teach them how to solve problems, we can have them do it productively, that is the best performing agent that we can have in our contact center.
So we give an example from a care resolution, but if we even took the same thinking, let's say I've got more like an inbound acquisition or selling upsell, cross-sell opportunity, I'm sure these type of same mechanics work exactly the same.
Exactly the same. And actually, in the world of upsell, usually that's a job given to care agents with some upsell capabilities where you want them to be upsell customers. Well, the easiest way to upsell a customer is to make that customer happy. Now, if you can solve the customer's problem, you can make them happy, they can be happy with you as an agent, they're going to buy from you. Then it's just a matter of understanding their need and giving them a solution that solves a problem. If you're selling something that solves a problem, you know how to upsell it, you know how to make the customers happy. So, upsells is a clear and direct correlation to agents that can drive voice of the customer. Now, on the sales side, again, we have been extremely effective in the inbound sales world and the outbound sales world. In the inbound sales world, the soft skills are table stakes and being able to talk to customers and building rapport. But being able to drive performance using our tools and analytics and coaching and learning and helping agents figure out how to overcome the objections, learn those from the high performers, pushing those data points directly to agents, it's a really fast ability for us to drive. So as a numerical performance number, we've been able to drive a 44% increase in a technology company's inbound sales acquisition world. 44% more calls being converted into sales than they used to be. That's a huge ROI to their bottom line.
No, absolutely. And I know for us service leaders, we always want to try to put things into financial speak to kind of route this up to the CFO and other executive leadership. So the more, we can take that and define it, obviously the easier it's going to be for us. So my question is going back more in the aggregate. What is preventing us to do, as an industry in general, what do you think is stopping us from getting there today? I think there's still a very good, there's a huge maturity set of agent performance and agent call resolution that's been going on for many, many years. But as we're talking through this particular, get it at the moment of opportunity and quick resolve and turn, what's preventing us from doing this, Shawn? Is it budget? Is it knowledge? Is it, what's our challenge? Why is this not more in a maturity set of this?
Well, I would say, one of the primary reasons initiatives are successful or not successful, no matter what you're doing, has to do with people. People, leadership, driving technology, driving process. So implementing Amplify by itself doesn't solve any of our clients' problems. It has to be looked at in an environment of, we've gone through a lot of process in doing digital transformation on our client side. Customer experience and the customer-facing technology. I think that entire process needs to be redone. In our internal operations, we really need a digital transformation of how our operations run. What technologies do we use? How do we take data and drive action from it? And that involves a lot of technology, but it always involves a lot of people and process changes. So kind of going through that process, implementing a system like Amplify, understanding and updating processes and driving accountability for people and making sure they're effective. All those kinds of things need to be done for any of this stuff to be successful.
Yeah, I know it's not a single answer. It's probably a multitude of different answers. But I think the reality is that we as a group of leaders have to be very much focused on service being a competitive differentiator for our brand. And we're going to have to continue to push the envelope of how we're bringing world-class service and resolution to our consumers. The train left the station a long time ago. And for our leaders out there, I know I'm speaking to the choir on this, but at the end of the day, we've got to keep challenging the status quo and continue to look at ways to ease that customer effort, so to speak. And if we're not as brands, then I guess shame on us. I mean, we are at risk, and possibly even your own job's at risk if you, as a service leader, are not really pushing and challenging that particular envelope. Shawn, let's say I'm listening to this episode and I like what I'm hearing. I agree. What would be your recommendation as far as where should people maybe start to identify and look at something in this concept? I mean, obviously, I know you'd love to talk with people that are listening, and we'll get your phone number here at the end. But what recommendations, where would I start, or what should I be looking at to kind of line myself up for some of these strategies?
No, I really think, evaluating your contact center, understanding your data, evaluating your coaching process and learning process, and understanding how all that ties together. Does your data, does your analytics, does all that information make it easy for your supervisors to understand what to do? Then, do your supervisors take the right actions, and do they have the skills to be able to coach and drive performance? Two, are you living in a world where your agents that are primarily millennials now and next generations are able to empower themselves to learn skills, or are they 100% dependent on their supervisor to coach them? And I think we have to kind of live in that environment where we're always forward thinking into making sure not just our customer experience is being driven, but also our employee experience is being driven. One of the side benefits that we've seen from a lot of our clients and working with Amplify is we've driven large improvements in retention. So as agents get empowered, as agents drive improved performance, as supervisors become better coaches, and the relationships between agents and supervisors get better, we've seen significant improvements in agent retention across our customer base. So we can prove that giving people and empowering people and giving them access to data and allowing them to get better helps drive better retention and helps you drive better experience. So I think you get a benefit in multiple ways.
No, that's well said, and I totally agree with everything you on that last piece there for sure, Shawn. And for our audience, I know 30 minutes is nowhere near the justification we can really give the full depth and breadth of this particular discussion. But I really want to say thank you to Shawn, for making some time and kind of sharing some of your thoughts and vision and what you've been doing to sort of pioneer and lead in the space. And before I close out, though, Shawn, if someone would like to get a hold of you, is there just something quickly you want to leave here on the podcast episode so they know how to reach you?
Sure. I think the easiest solution would be to email me at sminter, S-M-I-N-T-E-R, at amplify.com. That's AMPLIFAI.com. If you would like to talk to me, I'd be happy to talk with you. My cell phone number is 954-562-7151.
Perfect. Thank you. And again, if you did not get that quick enough, you can always email me, chad@execsintheknow.com, and I'm happy to put you in touch with Shawn. And on that note, for our listeners, I really want to hear from you as far as some of the things you're doing to reinvent the customer success and the agent success. So if you're listening to this podcast and there's something I think, I don't care how small the idea is, you may think it's not a big idea, but it could be a great idea that many people would love to listen and benefit from. So reach out to me. I'm here for you. I'm your advocate of customer success for you as leaders. And I really want to hear these success stories and these trials, these things you're doing that are reinventing the thinking and the status quo. Shawn, I know you're onto a great future with the company Amplify AI and the growth you guys have been seeing, and where you're going to continue to keep going as an organization. Would you do me a big favor, though, as you continue to do what you're doing and you're seeing different industry trends or insights or best practices or learning, please let us know at Execs in the Know, and I would love to get that sort of passed along to the rest of the community. So please be a pioneer for us out there, getting as much insights and sharing that we can succeed from that. So I would challenge you for that.
Thanks, Chad. And I'd have to say, I love the mission of Execs in the Know. I love coming to your events, and I look forward to meeting some of your listeners face to face.
Well, on that note, we are now out of time, but for all of our listeners, again, I really want to say thank you for your time. I know how much is bestowed upon you to get some of your time, so thank you for that. As I said, you're not alone in this mission of customer success. I hope to see you at one of our upcoming events or one of our podcasts or webinars, or just many things we're doing to drive the sharing. Shawn, mentor, you were a great guest. I can't thank you enough, and this will now conclude another episode of Customer Driven. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Customer Driven with Chad McDaniel. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. It really makes a difference in helping others find the podcast. For more information on our customer experience community, please visit execsintheknow.com.